Hey guys, I'm Jax, and this is my spoiler review for Avatar 2, The Way of Water. I've already given my brief thoughts and descriptions and feelings and, emotional, non-sexual related feelings. Why did I bring up sexual? It's not sexual, I just have deep, non-sexual feelings about blue cat people and, slightly less blue, you might describe them as turquoise, catfish people, and I've had, I've discussed all my non-sexual related. I say that like this review will be sexually related, but it's not. It's just that one is more vague feelings and thoughts about the film in a loving way, but non-sexually, because that's a thing. That can be a thing. This, I've said the word sex and sexual too much in this review already, and it's very early in the review, and that's worrisome, for one. But this is more of a deep dive into a couple of little points and bits and thingies, mostly to do with the whales. There's a lot of whale stuff going on. It's a whole Free Willy situation here. Not that kind of Willy. This too much sexual talk. I didn't think Willy like that. You did. I'm just preemptively striking that thought that you had. You pervert. You disgusting, filthy pervert. I know I'm the pervert. I'm the one that went there. You're like, Free Willy, like the movie. Oh my God, you meant Willy like that. You sick man. I am. I'm sorry. In the last film, they're like, oh, there's this mineral, unobtainium, you gotta get it. It's the MacGuffin of the film, and they're like, it's under the big tree. We gotta destroy the big tree. And it's just like a little MacGuffin situation thingy. In this film, instead of killing trees and deforestation and all that trash or whatever, it's all about whaling and how whaling is bad. And there's a big Australian guy, and he's like, oh, bloody hell, mate. Fair income, buppity bar. And I'm like, I've never felt more represented in a film. It brought me true joy. He literally says in the film, like a big whale does a thing or whatever, and he's like, oh, bloody hell. And I'm just like, I wanted to stand up and be like, we are seen to the audience. But obviously I was too enthralled in the movie. But I did do a cheeky look to the person I was watching it with, and I was like, he said the thing we say. Bloody hell, he's Australian. We're all Australian. It just warms my heart. It was probably the best part of the whole film. But this whaling pirates Australian man who bad or whatever, bad, whaling bad. And he's all like, okay, so, in the first one, we're doing a whole thing and we're getting it unobtainium for money. It's funding everything. In this film, it's different. There's a new thing they need to get that's funding everything. And Jermaine from Flight of the Conchords is like, I'm just a scientist. I'm just here along for the ride. And I'm not evil, but he kind of was evil. I don't know why he was in the movie. It was really weird, bad casting. Not as bad as Tarzan Boy, but still just weird inclusion. But our Australian pirate man, he's like, but actually, we kill the big whale, and also, when the whale dies, like one of the whales dies, the James Horner, the guy who made the Avatar 1 soundtrack, and he always puts that, he does that same, like, trumpet, like, bits, but, like, in different. Like, it's the same thing, but it sounds slightly different in all these films. Google it. Willow, Enemy at the Gate, Troy, Avatar. It's like the whole film, like, he died, so he's not going to, like, do the soundtrack. Will they be allowed to use his song? Can they, like, sample him? Because he samples himself each time, but will they be allowed to sample him now he's dead? He might have had something in his will where he's like, no one's allowed to sample the thing I sample in all of my films, and that really worried me, because that's the best part of Avatar, that trumpets bit. If you don't know what I'm talking about, bloody check it out. It is psycho. It's like, why does he do that? And because it's amazing, it sounds fantastic. But it, like, wasn't in the film. At one point it went boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, no, that's not right. You just got to do the thing. You can't do a little riff on it. You got to do the thing. Doing a riff on it is like what Danny Elfman does, where every song sounds the same, but it's actually not the same. What James Horner? James, my old buddy James, let's just call him James. He's got a last name, and that would help, because James is actually quite a popular name, if you weren't aware. But yes, oh glorious, yes, they actually use the music, and it's at a really emotional moment when the whale is dead, and it's like meant to be a really sad, somber moment, but I've never felt like such a fist bump moment in a cinema when something so horrific and sad is meant to be happening on screen. Like, that whale is dead, like all the Na'vi are like, no! And the music's like, and it's like all epic and grand, it's like really grand Avatar, and I'm just like, yes, they did the thing. They did the thing. Like, honestly, up until that point, I'm like, I'm loving this movie. It's gonna be a negative review if the song's not in it, because I love that. It's just honestly, like, after I rewatched Avatar, it was just in my head for days. Like, I just was, I'd be walking through the store, like, doing my job, and I'd just be sitting there in my head being like, what was I talking about? Oh yes, the whale juice. That's oh, this film is psycho. So the whale juice, he like extracts like a little tube of whale juice, and he's like, this whale juice is really expensive. Do you know what it does? And I'm like, I don't know. It's gonna be like, it's unlimited fuel, so we can do time travel, space jumpy, whatever. He's like, no, nothing insane like that, you idiot. This makes people not age like ever. And I'm like, do you mean immortality? Do you mean to say that these giant whales have immortality juice in them? What? How did you even find that out? They like carve up to this one specific point in the whale, and the immortality juice, this golden immortality juice, just like comes into this tube, and he's like, yeah, this is immortality juice. It goes for like $80 million. $80 million for immortality juice. So what you're telling me, Avatar 2, let's take a dip in the water, you're telling me that it cost $80 million for immortality. I just think that's a low number. I mean, clearly for almost everybody, 80 million, like too much, like way too much. I couldn't afford an $80 million immortality juice. But if you have immortality that you get from a whale and you're not charging $1 billion, I just think there are enough people that have too much money. Like, yes, it's the 1%, but the 1% is still like more than like 5 people. You can charge whatever you want, and you're charging 80 million for like, I don't know. I guess they didn't explain how much you need to drink to stay like young forever and immortal. Like, maybe you've got to like rub it on your face, like your clay face from the Batman animated series, and you just got to keep rubbing it in your face to like stay young and fresh and vibrant and cool and sexy. So I don't know, maybe like 80 million, you're going to need that, like that's once a week kind of situation. But they didn't explain that, so I just kind of figured you drink it once and you're good. I just don't think 80 million is like, that's not the price I would be setting, is all I'm saying. Another point on this magical elixir, never gonna age, immortality juice, this golden elixir of juice that comes from the whales. It's like, I don't want to sound like a monster. I'm going to sound like a monster, but let's all be real for a second. If there was a single animal in this earth that could just give humans elixir, like a drinking formula, let's just say we drink it, I don't know, or you rub it in your face, like a Batman animated series Clayface, you can maybe rub it in your face, so you drink it, or whatever happens with this golden elixir juice that comes from the whale, however we consume it, it makes us young forever and doesn't age, which, in turn, immortal. It makes you immortal. So let's just take a deep breath and think about this for a second. It never explains how much you need to drink. So, if we go to the crazy extreme, one drink, immortal. I mean, for $80 million, okay. How many drinks in that little tube? And just boom, boom, boom. Me and all my friends, all 2 of them, we're having drinks and we're having a time. Even that friend of a friend, that guy you hate, but he was always there in those big social environments, like a New Year's Eve party, you're like, I don't like that guy, but he's here. I was gonna say a name, like, but maybe he watches. He doesn't. That would be, oh my god, imagine if he watches. He's like, are you not my friend? Are we not friends? We're friends! Man's name that is, I will not say on, because we're not friends. I'm saying this right here, right now. We're talking real about elixir that gets stuck out of a whale into a little tube and it's golden. We're talking real talk right now, real spoiler talk, and spoilers, we're not friends. So I'm not saying that the whale deserves to die. Like, nothing deserves to die. Nothing deserves to be dead. Nothing deserves to be dead. I'm not saying anything deserves to die. I've seen Moby Dick. I think. I don't know. I saw half of that Chris Hemsworth film where Thor was like, I'm in a Moby Dick film. And I'm like, I don't know, it's fine. I don't know, I feel like there was too much stuff at the start, and halfway through I'm like, maybe I was hungover that day. I mean, that's no excuse. I watched that film that's really... I watched Arcane hungover, and it like shocked me out of my hangover. I switched the words there. It shocked me out of my hangover. Oh, I did it again. It shocked me out of my hangover because it was so good. It was just so good. Oh, that's a good show. When's season 2 coming out? That's what I want to know. My point is, I love Arcane. No, so that's not my point. My point is, I get whales. I'm a whale friend. But, yeah, I mean, just imagine there was like a whale, or all the whales. Just imagine if you were like, just imagine that whale juice that we got out of whales didn't make candles or whatever we do when we kill whales, and which is awful and tragic, clearly awful and tragic and bad and sad, and I don't like it at all, and I don't agree with it. Those whalers, no, they're bad men, bad men, and women. Women can be whalers too. We can all be whalers. My point is, we can all be whalers. But my extra point on top of that is just, imagine if what they were whaling was the fountain of youth. I think we would all have slightly different views on the whaling of animals. The whaling of whales. We would probably whale the whales. I think whales would be extinct. They'd be all dead, and there'd be like 12 to 15 very rich people that are immortal now, and that would just be how it was. Maybe that's a cynical part of my brain, or maybe that's the part of my brain that's dealing with the existential crisis of aging every day, and the hair is thinning, the eyes just look grey and dead, and I just feel old and just... And I like the idea of a whale making me live forever. I'm like, well, I eat animals, and those animals are dead, and I'm not getting any younger. So what if an animal died, but I was young forever? I mean, obviously, I would want that to happen, like, you know, have happened 4 to 5 years ago. This film made me angry and sad, because I want some kind of goddamn whale juice found in a youth thing. Like, is that what Hollywood has? Is that what, like, Brad Pitt is drinking? He's just drinking Pandora whale juice? Is that what's happening? James Cameron, you son of a bitch. Are you mocking me with your Hollywood juice? That Hollywood juice, that Pandora whale Hollywood juice, you son of a bitch. Give me some of that goddamn juice! One more whale bit of... Sorry, what? There's all this really beautiful, spiritual, you know, all the environment and nature and whales and humans and all we touch, and, you know, our tails touch together and it's all sexy. But also there's a bit where they're like talking, he's like looking in his eyes, just like, tell me your story, and he's doing sign language and, you know, all that stuff, and you're like, okay, you know, I'm buying all this, and the whale's like giving him a look, and he's like, I'm getting a lot from just this look. Then the whale just kind of like winks at him, or like does a bit of a, and suddenly a subtitle comes up, and like, I don't want to deal with that. That's all like that's a sad story. I don't want to deal with that. And I'm like, that was a subtitle. Did he just speak to the whale? And that happens like a bunch of times, like 3 or 4 times. People just speak to the whales, and the whale just goes, oh, I'm a whale. And it just like comes up with a subtitle where it's like, jump in my mouth, I'll give you a whole backstory subplot that I can't do, because if I just did it in subtitle text, people will be like, that's too much. This is already too much, doing this one little line dialogue, but that would be too much. So he jumps in his mouth and he does a whole subplot flashback situation. But what are you talking about? Why does the whale suddenly just speak to everyone? How does everyone learn whale so quickly? If they had just had a scene, like there's a montage where they're like, oh, in the first movie, you did flying, now we do swimming. And there's a bit where he's like, oh, I can't swim, and he falls in the ocean. And they're all like, oh, you don't know our ways. And then it cuts to the next scene, he's like, oh my God, you know our ways. It's like, just do a montage. Like, it's the bare minimum of a story to just do the montage. But he just doesn't do the whale learning language montage. He just knows whale language. They just can speak now. How does that work? But also the whale jumps up and does a big like belly flop onto the ship at one point in the action scene, and I did like that. So big belly flop onto an action ship, and then everyone's trying to shoot it, and he opens his mouth and goes, "Rah!" And everyone keeps trying to shoot rockets into his mouth, and then it goes closed mouth, and it moves, and everything just hits on it, like hits off its skin. So it's some kind of incredible armored skin. I liked the whale. To be clear, I liked the whale, but there is a lot of nonsense about the whale. There's a point where Jermaine from Fly the Conchords, he's like, actually, this whale is smarter than we are. It does mathematics. He says it does like a bunch of things, but the one thing that really stuck in my mind is like, it does math. And I'm like, how do you know it does math? Do I not understand the brain properly? Like, if you scanned my brain, would you see that the math part of my brain is like small? I just don't think that's how it works. Surely there's like a logic part of the brain and like a creative part of the brain and a likes Batman part of the brain, or I don't know. I can get specific, but I think being able to tell how good someone is at math via their brain seems insane to me. And maybe that's because I'm an idiot and it's a small part of my brain, so I'm just jealous that this whale does better math than me. I just don't understand. How did Jermaine know that the whale could do math? Like, I'm just sitting there being like, I need a Rick and Morty style scene where the whale is sitting in class being like, actually, teacher. And it does like that scene in those movies where the kid is like really smart and the teacher's like, actually, what's 8 times 7? And then I should have done a number I knew to start off, like the low bar. But, you know, my point is an easy... 2 plus 2, and the child's like 4, and then they keep going up, and then at a point the teacher's like, oh, I said a thing I didn't know the answer to, and then she gets her phone out with the calculator, and then she looks at the kid going, oh my god, the kid got it so quick, this kid's a genius! And then the kid has to go and, you know, speak to the principal, because the principal's like, you're not allowed to be that smart, all the other kids that bully you, and you're making me feel like an idiot, and I'm the boss in this land. I was gonna say land, what is it? School, we're doing a school bit right now. I've gotten very confused with what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the whale shouldn't know math. Or maybe I'm being a bigot. Maybe the whale can know math, and I just don't understand whales. Like that's I guess that could be on me. I don't know. I just think that when people are like, dolphins are really smart. They're like as smart as people. And I'm like, yeah, but like, I don't think a dolphin can do math. Like, how would the whale even do math? How would it even know the concept and idea of math? It's swimming around the ocean just being like, oh, if there was 100 school of fish and I took away 30, how many school of fish are there? It's like, I just don't see that going through the whale's like mind. I don't know. But once again, as I said, maybe I'm the bigot and an idiot, and whales do know math. On Pandora at least. Definitely whales here, they don't know math, because that's insane and stupid. Last spoiler talk thingy I want to discuss is the fact that Sigourney Weaver's daughter was birthed without a father, Anakin Skywalker style, and she is now Na'vi Jesus. We've got a Na'vi Jesus on her hands. She's like touching the land. She's like, I feel the Mother Earth. Na'vi God, whatever that's called. Iguana? No, that's an animal. Iguana. No, it's not iguana. It's because I would be like, iguana, like the animal. That's a weird coincidence. No. Iwani? It doesn't matter. Na'vi God is all like breathing and talking to her, and she's all like feeling stuff. And then later on, she gets Aquaman powers where she's like commanding the fish, and all the other, you know, catfish people, they're all like, what the? But she's a forest lady. There's also an amazing point where all the catfish Na'vi look at the normal cat Na'vi, and they're like, we don't like your kind here. And I'm like, oh my god, we're gonna get into some racism in this film. It's gonna get pretty heavy. And then it kind of just turns to like, oh, we don't like, it kind of turns into more like schoolyard bullying for like kind of, you know, little silly things, like as a schoolyard kind of thing, and doesn't kind of get into that heavy racism where they're like, your tail is different to my tail, and actually you're the wrong color blue. Turquoise is that. And I'm like, no, this is gonna get very heavy. I don't know if this film's gonna handle that properly. And then it kind of avoids that by just going, you swim bad, I swim good. I'm like, oh no, it's more like if we're watching a movie about like swimming athletes and they're like, you suck because you're like a nerd and we just swim and are jocks, but you swim and read a book, you suck. And it kind of develops into that realm, which I think it handles better than if it was trying to do some heavy, you know, hitting subjects like racism. I just don't think, you know, I think the environmentalism kind of thing he like wears and like speaks about and like handles very like sufficiently, if not, you know, heavy-handedly. I think he does it in a really good way, and it kind of feels like very genuine. Whereas the other stuff, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna play out the way he wants it to, but he doesn't, you know, he avoids it. Unless he doesn't, and the whole film was about racism, and I just didn't get it, because I'm an idiot. But yeah, anyway, we've got a little Jesus lady running about, and that is exceptional, and that's maybe the most excited I am for the sequel, like Avatar 3, now we do fire, or Avatar 3, now we do rock. I don't know. I feel like they're following the trajectory of Avatar The Last Airbender. That's not just like an Avatar referencey thing. It generally feels like the first one, it was air. It was like, we've got the dragons, it's all about air or whatever. But in a way, it's also like earth, because it's like the trees. So maybe they did earth and air at once, and the third one will be fire. But I just don't really, I can't visualize that. Like, are they going to go and meet someone at a volcano and he's like, we ride volcano dragons? Or maybe oh my god, maybe they're flying ones. Breathe fire! But as I'm saying that, I feel like fire represents man and evil and bad. Like there's some ships that land where they're like, no, the sky people have returned. And that, like a ship lands, it just like fire rips across, and it's just like, this film looks so good. Did I mention that I think this film looks really good?